as we know, a lot of healthcare is paid out of pocket. A lot of Filipinos and other countries, have high health expenditure. So we very actively look to work with private sector to provide access to affordable medicines, affordable diagnostic and screening services, and of course, affordable insurance. We offer about 500 products in the Philippines at the moment, and that's everything from diabetes medicine, hypertension medicine, through to vitamins, and then obviously, as I say, really focusing on financial protection and insurance as well. That's all I've got to say on Reach 52, but certainly happy to share more if any of you want to get in touch after. But really about last mile healthcare and connecting rural barangays. Going forward on to sort of where we are now, I guess when we're looking at the Philippines healthcare service, or looking at healthcare in general at the moment, the uncertainty is clear. Manila's just gone back into lockdown, as we know, so there's a lot of change. COVID-19 is consuming everything, so all the health workers are really having to focus on COVID in some ways, and that means other stuff gets dropped, such as maternal child health services or something, and changes are happening slowly. We need action now, but it's not. So when you look at what's happening, there's low to no screening, as we know, there's limited resources for public health, and really, in my view, the health system's being punished for not being digitized. So it's a lot of paper in the areas that we work in Visayas and North Luzon, and we're really being punished now for the low digitization. We can't easily find the people at risk, for example, to target them with public health information. The decisions are quite unpredictable, and of course the government has to juggle the broader economic impacts, so they can't just shut the economy forever. We're certainly seeing a limited focus on wider healthcare conditions. So because of the focus on COVID, non-communicable diseases and vaccines and maternal health is all being cut or having issues in delivering those services. And we have also seen some benefits there. So there has been some movement in the Philippines, as I'm sure many of you know, in the telehealth regulation. So now, for example, telehealth and e-prescriptions are allowed. So a lot of issues, but also some opportunities for digital health companies like us. If we put that into sort of into the statistics, right? Since SARS, the Philippines hasn't had a mass testing strategy. 0.1% of the population has been tested. It's been fully left to private sector, which is actually not a great government strategy. Unfortunately, in the Philippines, the healthcare workers themselves, so the nurses and the doctors and the barangay health workers are getting COVID a lot. And that's really high in Philippines compared to the rest of the world. So the health workers are suffering, which is something we don't see in other countries. 35,000 hospital beds are required to really provide a safe space in case people do get COVID. There's one doctor for 33,000 Filipinos, whereas the World Health Organization recommends 1 to 1,000. So it's about 30 times too few government doctors, especially given the heavy privatization of healthcare. And, especially relevant to our work, we do a lot in maternal and child health, and 50% of family planning services have been cut in the Philippines. So huge issues that we're having to deal with here within the health sector beyond the protection gap itself. And just sort of taking a view globally as we sort of look up to the global level. COVID is, of course, persisting. We're seeing impacts on income. We're seeing other deadly diseases start to come back, like polio has been one of the big ones in the Philippines. And businesses are also suffering, which is sort of equally worrying and goes far beyond healthcare. Just to walk through some of the stats on the screen, there's now 18.2 million cases of COVID globally, with nearly 700,000 people having died. That was the stats from yesterday. And as we all know, it continues to rise. 73% of countries that are part of the Global Vaccine Alliance are now reporting disruptions to immunization. So kids aren't getting vaccinated, causing problems in the future, causing deadly preventable diseases to return. Really scary stats around some of that stuff, where we might see some essential vaccines like DTP3 decline for the first time in 30 years. So we've been making great progress in global health. COVID is taking us back 10, 20, 30 years in many cases. Diseases that were eradicated will come back. It's estimated that nearly 1.6 billion informal workers, or half the world's labour force, might lose their jobs if the recession gets really bad. The informal economy and workers, who often lack social or financial protection, have experienced earnings drop of 60% globally, and more like 80% in certain continents. And I guess, yeah, if you then switch across to business, beyond the human impact, beyond the health, beyond everything, if you look at some reports, 50% of SMEs, so small sari stores or other smaller businesses, could close, which is, again, obviously a huge issue for the economy, for livelihood, for income, and again, sort of starts to underline some of the broader economic issues that we have to face. And then, yeah, when you think about the need for protection, when you think about health, when you think about out-of-pocket health expenditure like in the Philippines, so costs are going up, there's a need for protection. However, incomes are going down. So again, for the first time since 1998, so 20 years, right? More than 20 years, it's expected the number of impoverished people, or the people pushed into poverty, is going to increase by 70 to 100 million. So we've had a nice steady decline of poverty. You know, people have been getting wealthier, health expenditure and other diseases have been getting to some extent more manageable. But yeah, when you look at the costs going up, when you look at the businesses shutting down, and then when you look to incomes going down as well, it's starting to increase poverty on a global level, like, yeah, we haven't seen for decades. So yeah, really something that has to be considered, and looking beyond, yeah, Manila or Singapore, I'm based, looking beyond the Philippines, there's some really big macro factors that we need to consider. Ooh, excuse me. But that said, yeah, I'm going back to our mission. I mean, this is actually the slide that we used to use a lot when we were being founded. We also have to face up to the fact that 3.7 billion people still lack access to healthcare. But for the past decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, income levels have been rising, and they've been rising fastest in Southeast Asia. And yes, notwithstanding the issues I mentioned, poverty and costs and issues, there has been some ability to pay here. There has been some ability in the Philippines to get financial protection or buy some medicines, which is actually unlike many regions in the world whose incomes haven't. I mean, this is actually the slide. So now we have to continue that trajectory in this region, and we have to make sure, also have to face up to the fact that 3.7 billion and make sure incomes are stable, as well as savings the past protected from 2 decades, 3 decades. Income levels have been rising, and they've been rising fastest in Southeast Asia. So when we sort of link this all back, and yes, I'll spend a few minutes on this slide and poverty and our costs and issues. We're really excited for this partnership. It's hugely necessary, given the global and local Philippine situation that we now face. We know universal health coverage, unlike many regions in the world, using universal health. I mean, this is actually the one slide, but there's still a gap. We continue that, and from our experience, there's also a willingness to buy. People are good facts are available, and good services are available. Stay with us, you know, in rural areas, medicine, insurance, 2 decades, 3 decades. People do have some income levels have been rising, so they've been rising faster in South. So when we sort of link this all back, and yes, I'll spend a few minutes on this slide and poverty and our costs and issues. And then when we think about this, and we're really excited why we're hugely excited for the partnership with Allianz PNB. One, the insurance rate is incredibly low. We know universal health actually, unlike many regions in the world, approximately 1.5 trillion. But there's still a gap. We continue that, and from our experience, very also willing to buy. People are good facts are available. But then when you look at the opportunities in rural areas, the Philippines government is forecasting micro-insurance penetration rate levels have been rising. So we have those rising data. So when we sort of link this to this, willing now spend a few minutes on this slide, whereby we And then when we think about this, we're really excited why we're hugely excited for the partnership with Allianz PNB. One, the insurance cloud is incredibly socially no universal health to make sure you many protection gap. But then, when we think about how we deliver it, we've linked it back to the reach from our very answering, there's now 1.6 good phones available. But then when you look available, more phone in rural areas, the Philippines has almost 30% micro-insurance penetration rate. Think about the delivery of housing rights. So when we sort of think about digital and willing now spend and the internet, albeit, and then when we think about this, we're really excited why we're hugely the internet penetration is for the partnership with Allianz PNB. One, the insurance cloud is incredibly socially no universal to make sure you many market gap. But then, when we think about how we deliver it, we've linked back to the reach and within very answering, there's now 1.6 good phones available. So then when you look available, there's a bit of a rise, which is great to see. And the life insurance in rural areas, the Philippines has almost 40%. But that said, things about delivery of vaccine growth, 53%. So when we sort of think about digital and willing now spend and again, we've been clearly where I was and the internet, and when we think about the really exciting why we're very likely to decline the penetration is for the partnership with Allianz PNB. One, the insurance cloud is socially no universal to make sure but then, when we think about how we deliver it, we've linked back to the reach and within very answering, and then, it is also important to think about growth. So then when you look very active, the program that we are running with Allianz and the life insurance in rural areas, with almost 40%. But that said, think about how deliver now, 53%. So when we sort of think about digital and willing now, and again, clearly government and the internet, but when we think about this, we're very likely to decline the penetration is for the partnership and the reach. We're insurance cloud make a growth but then, when we think about how we deliver it, flexibility and within very answering, and then, it is also important to think about growth. But then when you look very active, the program that we are running with Allianz. Well, I mean, questions with almost 3%. But that said, think about how deliver now, 53%. So when you sort of think about digital willing now, and again, clearly government and the internet, but when we think about this, really exciting why we're very likely to
Thank you so much, Edward. Thank you for that eye-opening presentation. Lots of important insights that we got there. That we can as we face the new normal. So it gives us the reality of the global issues, situation that we're facing today. It's so appalling to know that 3.7 billion people lack access to healthcare, and half of the world still lack access to essential healthcare. So thank you so much for that, Edward. Later, I know our media guests are they want to ask questions, but we'll have time for that during the Q&A. Okay, so before we proceed to our next speaker, I'd like to take this opportunity to announce an important company update. We would like to welcome and acknowledge the Senior Vice President Officer in charge of Allianz PNB Life Market Management, Mr. Gino Riola. So we will be seeing more of him in our future media engagements, and welcome again, Gino. We would like to acknowledge as well our media guests today. We are glad to have gathered media friends of, I think we have about 57 attendees from the media, from Metro Manila to Visayas. We have members of the Negros Press Club who are having a watch party right now of our event. We have media and bloggers from Iloilo, Cebu, Tacloban, and in Mindanao, we have representatives from Cagayan de Oro in Mindanao. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will now proceed to our next speaker. just to give you a background, during the time when we were inviting guests to this online event, whenever guests would learn that it is an Allianz PNB event, we were often asked if our next speaker is attending. So whenever we say yes, of course he will be there, we would almost immediately get a confirmation of their attendance. So I will not delay this any further. It is always a pleasure to introduce the President and CEO of Allianz PNB Live, Mr. Alexander Grans. Alex, morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Charmaine, for this very kind introduction. I was not aware that I was known for my speeches or presentation, but maybe there are other reasons for that. Thank you so much again for the kind introduction, and a pleasant good morning to all our friends from media. So I'm very happy that you joined, and I'm very impressed by the number, and we got a really, really wide reach, very suitable to the topic, I would say. So I'm of course also pleased, and a special hello to my friend Ed. Ed and I go quite a long way back. We started discussing, I think I remember I was still based in Hong Kong in 2014. So I'm really, really happy and pleased that we announced today this partnership with Reach 52, which is a really interesting company, I would say. And as you have seen earlier from the presentation, I mean, it's really into details and really understands well the health market and does very well for the communities which are not yet served well and covered and don't have means of access for healthcare. So I do appreciate that, and I think it goes very well also with our approach here in the Philippines. So before we introduce more the specifics around the Allianz Globally, I would also share a little bit about Allianz itself for those who haven't attended earlier press conferences. So let me run you through some of the basic information around Allianz globally, and of course here in Asia and Philippines. So Allianz as such is one of the biggest insurance companies in the world. I mean, there's always a battle around a few companies who has the heads up. So typically our main competitor is AXA, who is equally distributed among the world. Some markets we are stronger because we entered earlier. In some other markets, AXA is a bit stronger, as you can see here. AXA entered already way earlier into this market than we did. So other side, we have 147,000 employees by now worldwide in the Allianz Group, and we are serving more than 100 million customers in more than 70 countries. And me personally, I'm very dedicated to Asia, formerly emerging markets, but now for the last, I think it's 7-8 years already here in Asia. Of course, I'm very excited that we are expanding in Asia and investing in Asia as Allianz. So with that, you see, we have Thailand there, we have, of course, Malaysia, we have Indonesia, we have Taiwan, all the established markets. But then we have Philippines, which was an investment in 2016. We have our friends in Sri Lanka, we have Laos, both rather small markets, but also kind of well established already. A big bet in China, of course, everybody is looking at China. And then Singapore and Vietnam, our recent digital approaches into the market, I think are worth mentioning. Overall, our results remain impressive. Last year, 2019, if you look at it, we approximately reached 142 billion euros in revenues and an operating profit of 11.5 billion euros. So I would say the number speaks for itself. It is really a long and trusted enterprise. And we have been increasing our revenues year on year. So in fact, 142 billion was a record year for us. And on the profitability side, almost, we didn't reach fully our record year, but it was another high, definitely. And of course, we are also well known as an asset management company, even though some people would not really know that here in the Philippines. But we have a brand which is called PIMCO under the Allianz Group. It is the leading fixed income manager in the world. And of course, we have Allianz Global Investors on the equity side supporting us, particularly here in the Philippines as well, with our funds we are providing in our insurance solutions. If we can move on to the next slide, please. Yeah, we are particularly proud. Of course, we reached in 2019 or regained in 2019 the #1 place in the world among all the insurance companies in terms of brand. So in the Interbrand ranking, we ended up on place 43, which I think is for an insurance company stunning, being alongside brands like Apple, being alongside Google, Amazon, H&M, Zara, and other brands you would see on the slide. But we don't want to rest. So our ambition is very, very high, set at 25. So we want to reach 25, the top 25 in 2025. So one of the key essential items there, which you have might seen in the past, is our large investment into the Olympics. So we became the partner of the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games from 2022 until 2028. So this you will see in the upcoming years more strongly, and we believe we will also make it to the top 25 in the near future, and are very excited about that. If we move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So here for the Philippines, some of you might know also we have been in the Philippines until 2003, but then we had withdrawn from this partnership in the past. But 2016, we saw a large opportunity to come back to the Philippines, as it is a very, very promising market, and you will see that in the next slide. But we found also the right partner, I would believe. PNB Bank here in the Philippines is a very, very strong retail bank. It's particularly strong on the provincial side. And we do believe with this partnership, we do not only share value, but we can really get proper reach in the country and help the Filipino families and protect their future. If we move on, the main reason why we, of course, re-entered the Philippines is fantastic outlook in terms of numbers. The population is tremendously big with 108.7 million Filipinos. Ed, I think, has mentioned that already in his presentation earlier. The insurance penetration is still at a very low level, at around 1.7, whereas the protection gap is massive. So here the numbers will always change a little bit. I think Ed mentioned 1.5 trillion. We have put down 1 trillion, but I mean, whatever the amount ultimately is, it is way too big and needs to be addressed, and needs to be addressed very soon. Then additionally, one item was, of course, the health expenses, which was mentioned, and the core topic around Reach 52, 50% or more than 50% of the expenses are still out of pocket. So that means nobody is helping the Filipino families, and health treatments, for example, and medicine becomes really a financial burden, which shouldn't be the case. So for us, our core responsibility coming into this country is definitely, as an insurance company, we want to bridge this protection gap, and we want to help the Filipino families to secure their futures. So how do we do that? First of all, I mentioned already the partnership with PNB. So that gives us access via more than 700 branches across the nation to cater to the needs of Filipino families. But nevertheless, we also want to reach further. So therefore, we also invest highly into agency. So agency will be the other distribution channel, which we believe will be also our future, which complements this approach and gives us an even wider reach and network in the Philippines. And of course, very timely, due to the COVID situation, we accelerated all our investments into digitalization. And I would even say COVID put digitalization around the globe on steroids. So with that, the consumer need has changed as well. And we basically launched just recently at the beginning of COVID our virtual sales process. So nowadays, instead of doing the personal selling process, our distribution across the Philippines is enabled to sell virtually, like we are doing now a Zoom call instead of sitting in our nice office. They're doing a sales process with you on Zoom or WebEx, as we call it. Then we, of course, cater to the health protection gap, particularly with our health propositions. So we started with Allianz Well, which is our premier health proposition. It caters to the A and B segment in the Philippines. It is 100 million international coverage, including COVID cases. And then we have also moved towards the, let's say, C and D segment with our Easy Health approach. Easy Health is more affordable health coverage, which is a 5-year term product, and it helps with additional critical illness benefits and also with our hospitalization benefits to give for lower premiums means of access. So, and lastly, I would like to mention, and some of you have joined probably the previous press conference on our project Sanlahi, and I was personally involved in that, and I even went on the OCR obstacle course racing with the guys. It is our project for financial literacy with the ITIS community, and I think that's also something which is important. What I have not mentioned earlier is that Allianz is the #1 sustainable insurer for the last 3 consecutive years as well. And as it is sustainability, corporate social responsibility is a key element of that. So I think we are taking this responsibility seriously, and such we do also with the project we are announcing today. If we move to the next slide. So that's, as we mentioned, I think Ed has mentioned that earlier several times, and me as well already. So for us, as part of the sustainability approach, we also want to be more inclusive. We want to help the unserved, underserved, vulnerable, low-income population in rural communities as well. And Reach 52 is an excellent partner for that. As you have heard earlier, they are doing a tremendous job in really providing healthcare and access to those communities. And we want to help with that. So let's move on to the next one and explain a little bit more about how the Allianz Kagapai works. So I mentioned earlier, Allianz Well is our premier product. It's the 100 million peso coverage internationally, but it caters more to the A and B segment, as a 40-year-old, for example, would consider a premium of around 60,000, 70,000 pesos a year to get this coverage. So of course, not affordable for everyone. But on the other side, I think this partnership will allow us to give purpose to those people who acquire Allianz Well. And in fact, from August 1 until December 20, we will now provide for each acquisition of Allianz Well a cover to one of the Reach 52 members in Iloilo, Pototan, and Cuartero, receiving a life insurance worth 25,000 peso and coverage against COVID-19 for 1 year. So I think with that, it has the beauty of giving purpose to the acquisition of Allianz Well and doing good for the community in Iloilo. So I do hope you find it equally interesting, and I do hope you are also excited about that, and I look forward to a lot of positive stories I hope we can take from this in the very near future. With that, I would like to give back to Charmaine. I guess question answers a bit later. So thank you, everyone, and already have a good day.
Okay, thank you so much, Alex. We appreciate this initiative of Allianz PNB Life and Reach 52 at this time when the Philippines is grappling with increasing number of COVID positive cases. We can all agree that a free life insurance that covers against COVID for a year is a lifesaver, especially that the first beneficiaries will be coming from rural communities, specifically in Potatan and Cuartero, Iloilo. So from all of us Filipinos, maraming salamat, Reach 52 and Allianz PNB Life. We will now continue and open the floor for questions from our guests. Reminders again to the media, if you have questions, you may direct your questions and send your questions to Lorena, who happens to appear in here as Q&A. Although earlier we have already filled in some questions. So Brian, please flash the first question on screen. Okay, so the first question, I think this is directed to Alex. Why did Allianz decide to partner with Reach 52? The question is from Ms. Eleanor Leco, Business Mirror. Okay.
No, sorry, I was on mute. So, okay, thank you very much for the question. I think it's a very good question, of course, and partly I hope we have addressed that already. So, as I mentioned earlier, I do think we have a key responsibility here in the Philippines, and we have already started addressing the protection gap, for example, with Allianz Well and with Easy Health. But now the question is, how can we really get further and also cater to those who are really in need and don't have means of access to healthcare? So, and I think there, Reach 52 as a data-driven company will really help us to get access to these communities and provide them with the equivalent solutions they really need. But also, I think this partnerships particularly helps us because for those type of partnerships to make insurance really affordable, of course, we are pressured to move much faster on our digital transformation journey. So hence, with that, we started implementing robot process automation, for example, which is important to really not have human intervention in the process of processing our insurance application or claims. Other thing is we work to much stronger with data because we need to get pricing down. We need to get the acceptance of underwriting cases much higher. So we need to be more and more inclusive, and data and artificial intelligence will help us in this regard. And then last but not least is really, you need to have a very effective streamlined process. You actually need to be able to go on the ground to give this application proposition to the client and then being able to issue a policy on the spot. So straight through processing, which is not that easy in insurance terms because we have a lot of regulatory requirements, a lot of process steps we have to go through. But we put ourselves in aspirations that to be really straight through processing, we should have an ambition. And this ambition is basically to deliver a policy within 5 minutes. So this is the hard threshold we have. Within 5 minutes, we need to be able to provide a policy, which is of course an e-policy, to a customer. Having these things in place, we will be able to have more affordable insurance solution in a low premium segment for those communities available. So I think with our combined approach, we can really get a bit ahead of the curve. And hopefully with this type of innovations, we will be able to include more and more Filipino families also in the rural areas and get them protected and secure their futures.
Okay, thank you so much, Alex. We have a next question, please, Brian. Okay, I think this one is for Edward. So question number 2, as Reach 52 is engaged in providing healthcare in rural areas, how can your partnership help promote the importance of health protection in the country? From Mio Briones, Take Off Philippines.
Perfect, and yes, thanks for the question as well, Mio, and thanks Take Off Philippines. Again, like Alex, I hope some of our presentation has answered some of this question, but I guess there's 2 parts to the answer for me actually. One is how we deliver services, and 2, why this partnership and how does that help achieve promoted protection. Firstly, in terms of how we actually deliver services, as mentioned, how can it lead to financial literacy or sharing the importance of protection? We train members in the communities themselves. We go to the rural areas. We hire women or the barangay health workers from that village. We give them the technology. We train them. We pay them. But we ultimately we create jobs, as mentioned, but also build trust with communities versus just bringing a person from Manila to rural Capiz for a day. It's really about empowering the communities to learn together and use really digital to facilitate that and help high quality medicines and healthcare advice and insurance reach reach these communities. Which is sort of core of our model. When you think about the partnership with Allianz, I mean, it is sort of nice seeing Alex's slide about how big and established they are, which is of course great. They bring a huge wealth of knowledge in the financial protection space. But yeah, almost proudly, we are a 4-year-old startup. We are digitally minded. We're fast moving. We're trying to be more disruptive than just follow traditional processes. And I think by combining the very deep sector knowledge of Allianz with the sort of more startup, fast moving, innovation focused, digital focused mindset of Reach 52, on top of that sort of community run delivery model, we have a really sort of compelling joint mindset and joint solution that can really look to help people understand the value of protection from members of the community and ultimately look to sort of seek services. And it really is worth noting, I mean, we've done a huge amount of market research in this space, and we have an office in Iloilo, and we have a market research team there, and we go to these communities and really understand their needs, both in terms of data and, interviews and so on. And it's very often that people do want insurance. We think that 25 or 30% of people in our villages will buy insurance, and you ask them why they haven't before, and the top answer is we've never heard of it. People haven't come out to us. I didn't know what it was. They've heard of PhilHealth generally. So it's really just about how do we educate and how do we just make it reach these areas, because often it's just the fact that traditional channels haven't so far that means people have been unable to engage in services like this, even if they were willing to. Hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you so much, Edward. I guess you did. You basically covered the aspects of the question. So we'll be proceeding to the next question. Okay. Question number 3. What are the ways in which Allianz has helped address the protection gap in the country? From Justin Adralas, Chinese Commercial News. I think for Alex.
Okay, thank you, Justin, for the question. I think we since we came in 2016, we are constantly trying to address, of course, the protection gap more and more and more. So the first thing I would say, it is important to get reach. So there are 2 ways of reach. One reach is our branch network, which we are building ourselves for agency, as I said earlier. So that's something to be expanded. Currently, we have 15 agency offices across the country, but of course, we envisage to have much more to really cover the country much, much better, and then hopefully also in more provincial areas in future. Then in addition, of course, we have very strong partners. We have HSBC more strong in the metropolitan area, whereas PNB is a very, very strong partner with a branch network in the provincial areas. So they have more than 700 branches. So this gives us already a tremendous reach. Now, the question is, how can we address the protection gap? Having this reach is really with the propositions we design. And the protection we can provide is twofold. One is financial services. Of course, we really want to protect the wealth of Filipinos and help them achieving wealth on the other side as well. And then, of course, we want to protect their health. So both comes along very, very closely, because usually if you're not health protected, it becomes also a financial burden. So basically all our product propositions gear towards the same direction. One is accumulating wealth and having funds available, which you can use, for example, also in emergency. And the other thing is to have really key protection products, which are more affordable because they don't have necessarily the savings component, but they really address a particular need, such as health insurance. And I would believe, for example, Allianz is a very good proposition, which is not yet fully understood by most of the population. Because you have your full healthcare, everybody knows the universal healthcare will cover, but it will not cover everything. The next layer is HMO. People, especially young people, they're happy to have HMO because they haven't experienced any hospital expenses above the limits which this HMO will provide. So there is a natural need to extend coverage and have coverage beyond that. So I think with Allianz, where we can address that. On the other, more affordable side, I think Easy Health is the key proposition which helps customers to get access and protect it. And that is Easy Health with a premium as low as 800 pesos per month, for example, which gives you a full coverage of critical illnesses, and it gives you hospitalization benefits. And then if you didn't have any claim in 5 years' time, it still gives you back some portion of the premium. So I think with that, we have already solutions to address the protection gap. We surely don't have enough because the complexity and the segmentation of our customers is way, way bigger. So we really need to move also more into the micro insurance sector to allow and to include more of the rural communities as well. And then, of course, digital transformation is a key element which helps us nowadays even more to get further reach. Now, during COVID, a lot of people immediately adopted to internet. Now, whereas my neighbors, for example, went to the grocery store in the past, now they're all ordering online. Nobody goes out anymore to the grocery store. I see cars coming by every other 5 minutes and delivering vegetables. Yeah. So the attitude has changed, and the need of our consumers has changed as well. So with that, we of course need to think also on a digital, from a digital point of view, how can we give access for the people also online? And that will also support then, as I mentioned earlier, for example, with a virtual sales process. So instead of going somewhere, you can just connect with us, and virtually we can have a conversation. We can do financial literacy and education, and we can help you finding the right solution for you. So I think with these things, we clearly can really address those protection gaps in the country, but of course it will take time as well. I hope I answered the question. Otherwise, please feel free to send follow-up questions.
Thank you so much, Alex. So we're off to the fourth question, Brian, please. I'll just go through the questions because it's already 11:47. So, okay, fourth question will be, how do you plan to choose the beneficiaries of Allianz Kaagapay? This is from Elsie Hulingan, Negros Daily Bulletin. I think this is for Edward.
Yeah, just checking, coming off mute as well. Yeah, thanks, and really good question. Thanks, Elsie. I guess, yeah, it has been a really difficult question for us because we've started with a number of plans already that we've actually already started distributing. But yeah, given the protection gap, it's clearly never going to be enough. The way that we've done it is probably, it's actually been with the people that have engaged most in their healthcare. So we've obviously been working in sites in Capiz, Iloilo, as well as Luzon for a number of years, and a number of people have really been working hard to improve their health, working hard to improve their well-being through our existing services, and often that's done at their own cost, you know. So they're buying medicines out of pocket to improve their health, or they're working with us, and often they have to pay. So yeah, for the first batch, we've actually given it to people that have really engaged in our maternal child health or other health programs, just because they've shown such investment personally into, you know, what we're trying to do and into their own health. So that's how we made the decision. We did all, but that said, we are also looking to offer a range of very affordable insurance plans that people can buy that are hopefully below market rate. And as has been said today, we'll continue to get more plans distributed as people buy the Allianz World product. And therefore, yes, the main focus is really just trying to reward people that have really been sort of engaged with us and really looking to drive their own health and well-being to a more positive state. I hope that answers the question as well. But it was certainly a very, very hard question, given the issues that are faced by so many Filipinos, especially in the rural areas.
Okay, thank you, Edward. I think Miss Elsie is looking forward to the time that Allianz Kaagapay would be going to Negros. I think she's based in Bacolod. Yeah, okay. So next question, please, Brian. With the rising number of COVID-19 positive cases in the Philippines, how do you plan to promote insurance inclusivity and help Filipinos cope with this problem? This is by Vince, from Vince Samson, Asian Journal. I think this is directed to Alex.
Okay, thank you, Vince, for the question. And yeah, I do believe it's a very concerning question as well. I mean, currently looking at the cases, they are rising, and I think Ed has mentioned the numbers more accurately before. But I also would like to put it in perspective and also surely mention this is my personal opinion. But for me, it's not really a surprise that these cases are increasing significantly day by day, because also the efforts around testing are enhanced on a daily basis. So you see a large number of accredited laboratories added on a weekly basis. And of course, the more we test, the more we will get transparency on the real number of cases. And personally, I would assume the real number of cases with COVID-19 is much, much higher than what is reported as discovered cases, right? So why would it be so way less than in other countries here in the Philippines? So I don't feel that it helps to create paranoia around this. So we need to be aware, and I think it's well done in terms of reporting nowadays. There's a lot of data available, but also everybody has to work the data and understand the data, and not only look at an absolute number. So I think that's the first thing I would like to address. And then how do we handle like the COVID-19 period? Of course, we need to be there for our customers. So we also need to understand the consequences of COVID-19 for our customers. So I think the first things, and we are among many of the insurance companies who looked into this, but we specifically, we looked primarily, first of all, for any kind of COVID-related case or claim to our company, we decided we have to fast track all our claims, right? So we need to make sure that access to the funds and the financials is as immediate as possible in order to allow to settle, for example, hospital bills, which are expensive. So we don't want this to become a financial burden for the families. The other thing is also the COVID-19 crisis has obviously an impact on the economy, has also an impact on financial expenses personally at home. So with that, we also consider to extend, of course, the payment periods and give our customers leeway in paying the next premium. Also understanding that, for example, digital payments are not easily accessible for everyone yet. A lot of people have bank accounts where they just try to go to the branch and the branch is closed because essential services only allows 50% of the branches to operate at the moment. So if you don't have any online banking available, then how could you pay your premium? So we need to understand our customers, we need to understand our customers' problems, and we have to react to that. So I think in this regard, we are very, very supportive of our customers. Then of course, looking into our health protection propositions, we include COVID-19 to make sure that customers are clear and feel comfortable about our protection and have a holistic protection and not mind COVID-19 any further and potential expenses which go way beyond the typical coverages of PhilHealth or of HMO. And I think the other thing I mentioned also is, again, digitalization. We need to do a better job in communication in terms of financial literacy. We need to provide the customers with more facts. So I think we are doing well there because during the COVID times, we have started much, much stronger to engage with our customers, much more frequently to communicate with them. And then at the end of the day, I think overall we need to give our customers the peace of mind. That's what we owe them. That's our key proposition, to give you peace of mind. If something happens to you, we are there for you. So that's really our key proposal, and we need to emphasize much more on that. And I think to quote also what has been reported by the insurance company, I mean, by the insurance commission, excuse me. So insurance companies have been very resilient here in the Philippines. So I think the number was shared also in one of my slides earlier. So since the COVID crisis, we have paid out more than 300 million pesos already in COVID-related claims. So that's very significant. And all of us are continuing to pay that. So I think that's something which underlines also, again, the financial resilience of the industry and what we can do for our customers.
Thank you, Alex. Yes, ever since you have emphasized simplifying communication and being customer-centric and engaging customers by communicating with them, that is empathy and giving them the peace of mind, especially in these times, crucial times. Okay, Brian, next question. Okay, so question number 6, why did you choose Iloilo as the first beneficiary of Allianz Kaagapay Nonoy Taclino of Iloilo today? I think this is for Edward.
Yeah, just checking mute again. Yeah, I'm muted. Yeah, thanks for the question again, Nonoy. I guess, yeah, in the interest of time especially, it's a very simple answer. Iloilo, I moved to the Philippines 4 years ago to set up Reach 52, lived in Manila. We went to a number of sites, a number of municipalities, and Iloilo was one of the first and most engaged in our programs. So we got great support at a municipal level, then up to provincial level. We've been there for the longest. We've got the strongest relationships there. We've had the best government support there for our programs, and it's just been a fantastic partnership that's almost as old as Reach 52. You know, it really was our first ever site. So when we have this innovation and something so critical as protection in this crisis, we really wanted to give back to Iloilo as being one of our first supporters and really helping us get the Reach 52 model working, and again continuing to sort of invest in our partnership. That said, yeah, over time we're really looking to go up into Capiz, Aklan as well. Lots of conversations in Antique as well, so very strong in Panay Island. But we also do a lot of work in North Luzon as well. So as this program hopefully succeeds, we'll certainly be looking to expand it far beyond Iloilo, and yeah, look forward to that.
All right, thank you so much, Edward and Alex. I think we have more questions coming in. However, as we said, in the interest of time, we'll be answering those questions via email and send them to you right away as soon as we can. Expect the members of Eggshell to get in touch with you within the day so that we'll be able to answer your questions. Some of the questions are actually related or closely similar to the ones that have been raised by the others a while ago. So I'd like to thank everyone. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Edward, for your presentations today. Thank you for the media friends and the bloggers who attended the first Allianz and Reach 52 media conference. And we're so happy that you were able to make it today. We'll see you again in our next media conference, hopefully soon. Right, Alex? Thank you so much. Thank you, Edward.
Thank you, Jermaine, for a great press conference, and thanks to the media for joining us again. And apologies to only have 1 hour today. Next time, I hope we can allocate more time for that, for more questions. But we will surely come back to you with the answers to your questions as quickly as possible. So stay safe and all the best. And Ed, thank you for joining us, and thanks again for the great partnership. And I look very much forward to it.
Yeah, and echoing all of that, yeah, thanks to Allianz, thanks to all the press for taking the time with us, and yeah, sorry for running out of time with the questions. So yeah, we'll certainly answer them, and if there's anything beyond the press conference as well, you know, just about the general Reach 52 model or where we're working, yeah, feel free to connect more broadly as well, and certainly welcome any collaboration or any other avenues of partnership. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone, and take care.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.